Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Kathleen Corthron. I know I messed it up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now pronounce your name, please.
No worries. Cara Lee Corthron.
Corthron. Okay. Can you tell us a little about yourself, please?
Sure. I am, well, obviously, I write young adult books. I'm also a television writer. I'm on a TV show right now called Servant, which is a horror thriller for Apple TV, created by M. Night Shyamalan. Let's see. I'm also a playwright. Um, I've been in Los Angeles for a little over a year, and I used to be an actress, but I'm not anymore. Now I just write lots and lots of things.
Okay.
A little bit about me.
Okay. Now tell us about your books.
Yeah, so Daughters of Jubilation, it is right here. Um, this is about, it focuses on the character of Eveline Deschamps, who is a 16-year-old young Black girl living in the South during Jim Crow.
Mhm.
And as she's sort of coming into herself as a young woman, she also has this crush on this guy who's finally making a move. All these very awesome teenagery things are happening. She's realizing that she is the latest in a long line of powerful, magical Black women going back to slavery and beyond. So she's starting to realize she has these very intense supernatural powers that she doesn't really know how to control. And if she doesn't get under control, she could actually end up doing serious damage to either herself or others, like dangerous. So she ends up teaming up with her grandmother, her estranged grandmother, who's a little bit of a wacky character, who kind of trains her in all of the ways of jubilation so that she actually knows how to take care of herself and not put other people in danger.
Okay. Can you tell us about the title, the significance of the title?
Sure. So jubilation is the word for all of the magic that they have. So jubilation actually entails certain specific things. One, there's a telepathic connection where they can actually be in different times and read each other's minds or other people's minds sometimes if they want.
Mhm.
There's a telekinetic aspect where sometimes people with this can make things move with the power of their mind. They also have the power of changing the environment that they're in if they want to, often as a way of escaping something dangerous. Um, oh, and they also have the gift of intense focus. So if they need to really pay attention, they can actually slow time down
Mhm.
so that they can see, hear, smell every detail of what's going on, and then they will actually kind of memorize the event for future reference. So all of those are kind of like the main things that jubilation entails. Um, but the reason it's daughters is that because it is this long line of these Black women, and even though it focuses on this one particular young woman, she's just like the latest in a very, very, very long line. And we'll even see that in the book, is that she ends up talking to her granddaughter from the future, who's going to also have these gifts. So that's where that the title comes from.
Okay, can you tell us about the beautiful cover?
I love the cover so much. It's so pretty.
Yeah.
Um, I I feel like we got so lucky with this design. The artist came back with it, and I was just in love. I think I had maybe two small like suggestions and adjustments to make, but I don't. It's like perfect. I don't even know how to like. I don't know how she did it, but there's something about that you sense magic. I've even heard from some of my Southern friends that are like, it looks Southern. I don't know why, but it kind of does. It's really, I don't know what to say other than to gush about it because I think it's gorgeous. The model is gorgeous. I love the way she's looking into the camera. All of it seems to like, it just feels like my book. And I was really happy.
Oh, would you like to read a snippet from your book?
Sure, I would love to. So, what I will read is I'm going to read the very first chapter.
Okay.
So, you won't need any explanation. You shouldn't need any explanation or anything, but we can discuss afterward if there are questions. This is chapter one. It's called Savior. Here's the thing about me, I ain't normal. Never have been, never will be. So, That's my private business and nobody else's. I got no interest in drawing attention to myself for any reason other than my good looks and memorable personality. They don't understand what I did yesterday, so they're making a big fuss. I hate it. What am I supposed to do? Refuse a newspaper article? Refuse a newspaper interview with my mother so proud she finna combust? Can you remember what you were thinking when you first noticed that something was wrong? A young reporter asks me. If I didn't know better, I think he was in high school too. Nothing, I say. I could just tell it was gonna fall, so I had to get them out of the way. This is silliness. Who wouldn't have done what I did? He asks a few more questions. Then he makes me pose for a photo with the family, the Pritchards. They flash toothy smiles at me, their savior. Had I not been there yesterday when a big old oak tree was about to fall on them in their new shiny T-Bird convertible, we would not be sitting here all sweet and harmonious. The flashbulb blinds me, and I'm finally free to go. Mr. and Mrs. Pritchard thank me once again. Their toddlers run circles around us, and Mrs. Pritchard's fat with another one on the way. T-Bird ain't exactly a family car, but that's none of my business. You should come over to our house for supper one night, she offers. In a fraction of a second, Mr. Pritchard shoots her a look. Ain't no way in hell he's ever going to let me step foot into his house. Not that I want to go. Plus, white people can't cook. Thank you, but I'm just glad y'all are safe, I say in my good girl voice with my forced good girl smile. I leave the newspaper office's steps with Mama beaming beside me. I'ma stop saying it, but I am so proud of you, baby. You're so brave and selfless. Honestly, I just didn't have time to think, I say. That means saving folks is just who you are then. Don't lessen it. This is a great thing you've done. We get to the bus stop and wait. What you want to eat tonight? I'll make whatever you want and you don't even have to help me. Maybe chicken and dumplings, I tell her. Should have known. I was guessing you'd say shrimp and grits, but chicken and dumplings would have been my second guess, she says. I might have said shrimp and grits, but the last time I asked for it, she complained about the rise in price of certain kinds of fish, so I thought it was off limits. She bumps me with her shoulder, and I can't help but grin. It's a weird, affectionate thing she used to do when I was little. Mama doesn't know the whole story, though. I'm not a hero. It's the end of a mostly mild spring. There was no storm or high winds, no reason for a giant oak like that to just plummet to the ground. I was fooling around because I got mad. I'd ridden my trusty Schwinn into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Hadn't meant to. I just wasn't paying attention. I stopped to figure out where I was and how I ended up there when a man approached me. Who do you belong to? He asked, giving me the dirtiest look. No one. I just got lost, I explained, backing me and my bike away from him. I suggest you get unlost before you catch some real trouble, he barked. Then he marched across the street to the car where his wife and kids waited for him. The wife was hollering at the little ones to get in the car. They didn't pay her no mind. When he got to the driver's side door before getting in, he said something to the woman, and she got closer to him. They talked for a few more seconds. I was too far away to hear what they said. And the wife looked over at me, shaking her head in disgust, like the very sight of me was ruining their whole day. That old oak tree was big enough and near enough that I had a thought. Wouldn't it be something for these folks to have an accident right now? It was a quick thought, and I don't think I even meant it, but it didn't matter. A sharp headache ripped through me, and the tree started rocking at the bottom of its trunk. And it kept on rocking harder and harder. Couldn't believe my eyes. I tried to make it stop, but then I heard the unmistakable creaking sound of wood starting to snap. I ran over and shoved the family out of the way, all of them. And then the tree came down, crushing that shiny new car. Once they got over the initial shock, the kids started crying and screaming, and their parents tripped over each other, thanking me. I made the mistake of telling them my name, which is how the newspaper found me. So yeah, sure. I guess I saved the Pritchards from certain death. But nobody knows I tried to kill them first.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of course.
What was your favorite character, or what is your favorite character in the book, and why?
That's so hard. Because I like a lot of them. I loved writing Evie. That's the main character. That's she's the voice, like the narrator's voice.
Mhm.
She's a lot of fun to write. But I think maybe my very favorite is her grandmother, Grammy Addie, who is just really tough and funny and just does not give a crap about what anything. She'll say whatever she wants. And that was actually a lot of fun to write.
Mhm. Is any of your characters real or imagination?
Because, everything I write, I think every person I write is somehow based on people I've known in my life or like either grown up with or have been around. A lot of times people I've grown up with because it's kind of just in my subconscious. But no, I would say nobody is exactly based on someone else. It's just like little pieces here and there. So they're all kind of a combination of people that I knew.
Okay. Which do you prefer, playwright or author?
Author. Yeah, it's good to be a playwright. I like being a playwright, but what's nice about writing books that I love is that other than my editor, my agent maybe, and then when I first write something, I get people I trust to read and give me feedback, like a couple of family members and friends, other writer colleagues. But other than that, it's all me. Like I'm responsible for what's on that page, and when it's done, it's done. And the reason I say it like that is because when you're writing plays, there's so many other voices that get involved, and that's fine. I mean, that's part of it. It's really collaborative. But from designers, director, actor, producers, like everybody has an opinion. And at the end of the day, it's still my play, but I can only do so much. And I guess what I mean by that is if I'm sitting in an audience with everybody watching my play, I can't jump on stage and like fix anything. Like it is no longer in my hands. So
Mhm.
what happens is going to happen, and sometimes that's great and sometimes it's not. So the cool thing about the book is nobody can jump in and do anything. Once I've written it, it's done.
Mhm. Mhm. What inspired you to become an author?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I've kind of always wanted to. Um, I'm trying to think of the first time I ever really thought about it. Because, I used to write even when I was little, but I just never really took it that seriously.
Mhm.
Like I always liked people would give me kind of old notebooks and things, and I loved filling them with just nonsense and like even like little rhymes and things. I just enjoyed it. It was just kind of fun for me. Um, but I feel like when I got older, I started to think more about the books that I read when I was little that I loved, and I still do. But I really never saw anybody that looked like me in those books. And I looked for that person.
Mhm.
She just
Mhm.
wasn't there, and so I loved reading, I loved writing, and I kind of thought, I wonder if I could actually do this and kind of create the books that I wish had been there when I was looking for some kind of self-reflection at the time. That was kind of the real kind of grown-up inspiration, I think, to do it. And then it took me a while to actually do it, but that was really kind of always in the back of my mind, what I hoped I could do.
What is your writing process like?
Let's see. Um, Not very organized. It's kind of all over the place. Um, yeah, I wish I were, but I'm not one of those people that wakes up at like 6 and it's like this is my writing time, and then I have breakfast and then I do such and such. I've never been like that. It pretty much depends on what the nearest deadline is, what I'm focusing on. Um, and because I work in different genres, it can get a little bit tricky. Like, for instance, I'm in a writer's room right now. We're kind of on like a little bit of a break, but we're going back at the end of the month. Excuse me. And when I'm in a room for TV shows, that is, I'm pretty much dependent on that schedule. Like I have to follow it. If it's, you know, 5, 6 hours a day, Zoom room, I have to do that and then build everything else around it. So, I'm in the room thinking about the show, talking about the show. And then if I need to work on my book afterwards, I leave, maybe I take a break to clear my head. And then I try to spend a couple of hours working on the manuscript. And it's hard. I prefer to be able to just focus on one thing at a time, but I just usually don't have that luxury. So yeah, I try to just make it all fit as best that I can. My favorite thing to do, of course, I can't now because of the worldwide pandemic, My favorite thing to do is to go away when I have time to like writers retreats. So like my favorite place, one of my favorite places to go is McDowell. Used to be called the McDowell Colony, but they changed it. It's in New Hampshire, like northern New Hampshire, and it's this wonderful place where they accept artists. You have to apply, accept artists. You can stay between 2 and 8 weeks, I believe, the residencies, and they provide all meals. They give you a beautiful studio with like a fireplace. It's kind of like a little bit heavenly for artists. So that's actually one of my favorite things to do, but that's a special thing.
Okay. How did you feel when you got that first published book in your hand?
I was really, 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 really excited. And honestly, it felt like such a journey to get my first book published that I almost didn't believe it. Like even like holding it, looking at it, I was like, I'm gonna find out this isn't really gonna come out, right? Like this is a trick.
Mhm.
Like it took me a while, and still sometimes I have to look and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my name. I made, okay, this is real.
Yes.
And I think that's how I realized that I wanted that for so long, that when it actually happened, it was just like it's kind of the best feeling. It's hard to explain, but it is like this great feeling, and the sense that people that I'll never meet are gonna connect to something I wrote, which is kind of crazy, but also kind of beautiful. Yeah, it's kind of exciting. It's very, very exciting actually.
Well, have you ever checked YouTube and see the many people that have reviewed your book?
Like, not really. I know for my first book, there was a really kind of adorable YouTube review that I saw. I forget, somebody had sent it to me, but it was like a young person did it. Um, I don't really seek out reviews too much because they can get into my head. Usually when I'm reading reviews, it's because someone is like, you really should see this, or this would be a good pull quote for your website or something like that. And it's like, oh, okay. And also if I think it's something that will, if I read it, I'm like, oh, this might actually make people buy the book or encourage them to buy the book, then I might share it. But I try a little bit to stay away from that because I almost feel like it's not my business. Like, because once I'm done with the book, people are going to feel however they feel. I can't really control that. But yeah, so I'm not, I don't go get too far into the whole review business, but yeah, a little bit here and there.
Okay. What is your role in the literary community?
Oh, that's interesting. Like, do I have one? I guess. I had never thought about that. You know, I don't know. It's a hard thing to answer because one, I'm like a huge introvert, so I don't really do a whole lot of community activities. But also, you know, I kind of am in so many different places. Like now I'm in LA, and which I ended up moving out because of TV. And when I was in New York, which I lived in New York for a long time, that was a little bit closer to, I guess, kind of the center of the literary community in this country, kind of. Um, yeah, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm still trying to find it. You know, I feel like I'm I'm somebody that really, really wants to connect with young people and give them something that will make them feel seen and feel proud. And yeah, I'm actually still trying to kind of learn and figure it out. I don't really, like, I'm not like a networker, so I don't really see myself as being like I'm the such and such, or you know,
Mhm.
um yeah, I think I just want to be the author that young people dig. That's really, really all I'll say.
Do you have other published work?
Yeah, a couple of my plays have been published. Trying to think of, yeah, a few of my plays, most notably my play Holly Down in Heaven has been published, and that's the one that has sold the best, meaning that that's the only one I've ever seen any like residuals from. Like when I get a check, it's like, oh, because a couple of people bought that play, which is nice. And I have a couple of short pieces published in like anthologies here and there, but yeah, that's really all. I mean, I totally appreciate play publication. I think it's great, we just aren't really a culture that buys plays anymore. Like unless it's, you know, like a school, like a high school, it's like, I want to do your play and can I license it? And that's always cool. I like it when that happens. But as far as just people reading for pleasure, I think that did used to happen like many years ago, but it doesn't really happen so much these days. So real publication for me really is more about like the fiction, because that's where we really get our audience.
Mhm. What do you do when you're not writing?
Sleep. Do I do other things? I sleep, I watch Netflix. I try to read as much as I can, like for pleasure, and that's hard. I used to be a lot better at it, and I've been trying to force myself lately to always have at least one book I'm reading that has nothing to do with work, which
Mhm.
isn't easy, but I have been doing that. I wish I could say I did other things. Like I would love to say, oh, I have hobbies, but I haven't really found space to do that yet.
Mhm.
Maybe at some point I will. I used to knit. I haven't done that in a long time. That was fun.
What is your genre and what attracted you to that genre?
You know, it kind of shifts. I mean, Daughters of Jubilation is like magical realism, um, kind of grounded fantasy. I've also heard it described as, because I enjoy fantasy, I enjoy supernatural, but I'm not like one of those Game of Thrones people. Like I'm not. You're never gonna find dragons in a book that I've written. Like I'm not gonna go that far.
Mhm.
But I am interested in like what are the elements of magic that can be sort of filtered into real life, which is sort of what Daughter's Jubilation is.
Mhm.
Um, I also like thriller and horror. My the show I'm on right now is horror. The other show I write for you, which is on Netflix, is like a thriller. Um, so I am definitely drawn to that genre. It's hard to explain why. I keep wanting to find a good reason because people ask me all the time, and I get it. But I always just have been. I think that there's something about storytelling and high stakes and the sense of real danger that excites me and really snaps my attention into
Mhm.
focus
Mhm.
in a way that I feel like other types of stories don't. And I also love comedy. And this is the funny thing. I think that there's actually a really close connection between comedy and horror because comedy, the stakes are also super high. It's just you know, when things go wrong for the hero in comedy, often the answer is absolute humiliation as
Mhm.
opposed to, death in horror.
Yeah.
But there are like these strong connections, which is why I think a lot about Jordan Peele doing Get Out. And he actually once said, which I always cracked me up, that somebody asked him what's the main difference between horror and comedy. And he said that he thinks it's the music, which is kind of, I think it's more than that, but I think that's a funny answer.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that there's something about both of those genres that I'm particularly drawn to because of super high stakes. And I because of that, I think I get more emotionally involved than I do maybe in kind of a straight drama, even though I love a lot of straight dramas, but I'm not always as invested, I feel like. So that's kind of what I've been sort of drifting towards and what the type of shows that have been, trying to hiring me
Mhm.
has gone in that direction.
So you mentioned that you have been on a lot of shows. What has been your favorite one?
Yeah, I've only been on a couple actually. Oh, that's such a hard question. oh, uh, that's so hard because they're all fun in different ways. Let's see. How did I think the most unique, I'll say the most unique is the one I'm on right now, Servant. Um, as far as like the best experience, because it was kind of my first show and my first real TV experience, I would say it was You, the show You, just
Mhm.
because they're such a great team. I really love those writers. My boss is just kind of awesome and she's so smart and sharp. And I feel like I just learned so much. That was a kind of like an education. Whereas like Servant is like, I love those people too. It's also just very strange. Like a lot of what we do is not sort of how typical rooms go because our boss is M. Night Shyamalan, who's a filmmaker and an auteur. And he doesn't feel the need to follow a whole bunch of rules. so so we kind of like just do things the way that he seems to like, and it's just very interesting. It's an interesting process.
Mhm. What was the inspiration behind your book?
Let's see. There are actually several, but the one that I think about most was is this particular photograph that I saw several years ago. Um, there was this exhibit by the photographer Gordon Parks that he did in the 50s. It was a spread in Life magazine. I think it was 1958. Now I may be saying the year wrong, but it was 50. I think it was 58. But it was there were all of these photographs that he took while he was spending time in Mississippi and Alabama, and they were of everyday Black people living under Jim Crow. And there wasn't like a point, like he wasn't like saying, here is an example of struggle or here is this. He was just showing their everyday lives.
Mhm.
So, people like barbecuing or like talk. I mean, and there were these really beautiful photos of just everyday people. And then there were a handful of them that actually didn't make the cut. Like they weren't actually published, but were released like 30 years later. So I saw an exhibit of those. And one of those photographs really stayed with me. It's this photo of this young girl. She's kind of in the foreground, and she has this little like sly smile on her face, this young Black girl. And you're like, I wonder what she's thinking about, because we don't know. Behind her and this like little house, there are a couple of adults. We don't see them too clearly, but they're sitting back there. And then in the far distance, there is this weird cloud. And it's hard to make out. It's like, is that smoke? Is it a twister? Like, what exactly is it? It's really large and kind of intense. And if you look straight at the photo really quick, it looks like it's coming from her head. Now, logically, we know that's not what's happening. But like at first sight, I was like, and then I had to kind of back up and like look and logic it out and figure out what was going on.
Mhm.
But I had this weird thought of like, wow, what would that little girl's life have been like in Mobile, Alabama in 1956 if she had the power to like wreak havoc on the world? And that was kind of the first thought that I had for Evie. And this was some time ago, but then it definitely evolved. But that was like the first real concrete thought I had for this book.
Oh, wow. Who is the author you most admire in your genre?
Ah, um, so hard, so hard, so hard. I'm gonna say Octavia Butler, even though I know people think of her as more sci-fi, even though she did write some fantasy. But I'm gonna say her anyway, just because I think I've been more influenced by her style, I would say,
Mhm.
than other like kind of supernatural type writers. It's also tricky because I write in different ways. Like my first book actually is not magical or supernatural in any way. My first book, The Truth of Right Now, is it's just contemporary. It's about two kids in modern day New York City um, dealing with struggles of life, and there's no magic or anything. So I kind of hop around genre, but as far as like getting into the magic element, I would say Octavia Butler.
Okay. What challenges do you face when you're writing?
Well, just making myself do it sometimes. uh, yeah, every now and then motivation can be hard. Motivation's hard when I don't feel like the deadline is that close.
Mhm.
If I'm like, oh, I have time,
Yes.
it's really easy for me to just put it off and put it off. And that's something that I struggle with. And not because I don't enjoy doing it, because I do. It's just much easier to not do it. So often I will put it off until I absolutely can't anymore. Um, and then I always, like, I think most of us as writers struggle with the inner critic. There are times when I'm writing and feeling like, oh, you're repeating yourself, or oh, you're doing stuff you've always done. You're not trying anything new, or just like the little like dumb things that the mind is telling you to mess with my self confidence. I have to struggle with that too. And there are times when it's harder than others, but it's just like an ongoing struggle. So those are kind of my biggest barriers. And I get like the first one, yeah, laziness is part of that first one.
Where can readers purchase your books?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Where can readers purchase your book?
Oh, pretty much anywhere. If you go to, is it bookshop.com? Let me look and make sure. It's what it is. It's this internet shop that supports, yes, bookshop.org. If you buy books there, it actually donates money to independent bookstores across the country, which I think is wonderful to support. So that's actually my favorite place to tell people. But of course, it's also available at like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, kind of all of the like usual suspects. It's also there.
Mhm. Where can readers find more about you and your books?
You can go to my website if you would like, which is caroleecorthron.com.
Okay. And what are you currently working on right now?
So many things. What can I talk about? So I'm supposed to be working on a screenplay. I haven't started it yet. What I'm supposed to be working on. I know I keep thinking I have to start that soon. It's a horror screenplay for Warner Brothers, and we'll see. I can't say much more than that, but it should be cool. It should be cool. It's also directed by a Black woman, but I don't know if I can say who yet, so I'll leave that there. But it should be cool if I, write it. So there's that I have to do. I'm sort of working on my next book, kind of intermittently, because I'm waiting to see what's going to happen, because I may end up switching publishers. So I'm a little bit kind of waiting on that, and I may be working on adapting Daughters of Jubilation for a TV series soon. So that's something that we're in talks about. So there's stuff coming. I'll be busy.
Okay. About publishing, how was your publishing journey?
Varied. Yeah. Wow. Like, what should I? Interesting. So this is published by Simon & Schuster, Books for Young Readers, Daughters. My first book was by Simon & Schuster, Simon Pulse, but that particular imprint no longer exists. So that's why I got switched over. I sold that first book. I'd already written it, but then I got a contract, a 2-book deal. So I knew I was going to have to write another book, but I didn't know what it would be yet. And that's what ended up being Daughters of Jubilation. So it's kind of been a long process because, I had a couple of different editors. One, actually 2 of them left the company. One while I was in the process of working. One after I had like done a huge rewrite on the book, and she's kind of like ghosted. And so I had some strange experiences. But ultimately, I'm happy with what this book is, what it became. I have an editor now that I like a lot. I think she's very cool and very smart. But I from what I've heard from other people, I think it's just always a little bit varied and bumpy. And, there are good things and there are tough things about it. But yeah, since it's been a while I've been with them, because that offer, the contract was in 2015. So yeah, so it's been like 5 years.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
I hope you all read my book. Yeah, and thank you so much for inviting me to chat about it. This has been fun.
Okay. Thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.